In Serbia, around 1.2 to 1.6 million people joined the protest in Belgrade. That's a huge number, especially since Serbia has only 6.6 million people.
More than 100,000 people at the country's biggest ever anti-government protest.
Almost a quarter of the population was on the streets the last day. They were protesting against President Aleksandar Vučić.
When we talk about the current moment, this year again, I have to state that the situation in the world seems even more difficult and dark.
His party has ruled for 13 years, and he has been president for almost 8. But now, his time in power might be running out. What caused this massive protest, and how does it impact Putin's empire? Let's find out. Under Vučić, Serbia became one of the most corrupt countries in Europe. The problem became clear when a newly renovated train station collapsed last November, killing 15 people. Before this disaster, the government had been bragging about how much money they were spending on infrastructure. But after the collapse, people realized corruption was behind it. Outraged, protesters took to the streets, demanding an investigation and accountability. The media played a big role in this crisis. Many Serbian news outlets are controlled by the government, including those owned by Vučić himself. At first, they tried to downplay the disaster, claiming accidents happen everywhere. But this only made people angrier. Protesters wanted answers. They demanded to see documents related to the train station's construction, who got paid, how much money was spent. But Vučić refused to release the documents. Even after 6 months, they remain hidden. Over the past decade, Serbia has become more authoritarian. The government has taken control of the media and the courts. People were already unhappy, and this train station collapse pushed them over the edge. Despite ongoing protests, the government refuses to share the documents. However, independent reports show that 64 million euros were spent on the renovation, an outrageous amount. The contract went to a Chinese company under the Belt and Road Initiative. If the numbers are true, Serbia could have built multiple new stations with that money instead of fixing one that collapsed. Serbians are demanding change. The protests have been growing for months. The prime minister resigned recently, but he did not admit guilt. He said he was stepping down to ease public anger, hoping for a peaceful solution. But this resignation didn't calm things down. Instead, tensions grew, even in parliament. At the same time, Serbia shocked the world by voting at the UN to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Serbia has long been seen as pro-Russian, so this vote surprised many, including Russia. However, Vučić later apologized, saying, "I believe Serbia made a mistake today. I apologize to the citizens of Serbia for that mistake. I take the blame because I was tired." It seemed like he was apologizing to Russia, not his own people. Later, Serbia changed its vote. But will Vučić let Serbian citizens reconsider their vote for him? This all led to yesterday, the biggest protest in Serbia's history. More than 1 million people took to the streets, demanding his resignation. One protester said that, "I want a new government, but that is hard to achieve." Still, we are here to show how many of us want a country without corruption, lies, and injustice. We hope for the best. What happens next? No one knows. Another protester added that, "We have been angry for years. Dictatorship, corruption, and injustice brought us here. We want this protest to be peaceful and strong." Vučić has tried to discredit the protesters. He claims they are being used by the opposition or paid by Western intelligence. But if Western agencies could organize 1 million Serbians, Vučić probably wouldn't have won the election in the first place. His claims have only increased tensions. Pro-government groups have attacked peaceful protesters. In one shocking event, a driver drove a car into the crowd, injuring a protester. Will Vučić step down? No one knows. But protests grow each day. While Serbians fight against corruption, the rest of Europe is also facing challenges. Russia's aggression is becoming a bigger threat. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. The President of the European Commission recently warned and said that Putin has proven he is a dangerous neighbor. He cannot be trusted. Russia spends more on its military than all of Europe combined. We must strengthen our defense. This statement upset Russia. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov responded with personal attacks, showing how much pressure Russia is under. Meanwhile, the Russian state media keeps spreading war threats. They claim any war with Russia will lead to Poland's destruction and Russian troops taking over enemy capitals. Because of this, Poland is increasing its military spending and expanding its army. Tensions are rising across Europe. Russia is making it clear it will not stop its aggression. Moscow refuses to talk about peace. Instead, it insists the war will continue. This is why countries like Poland are getting ready for possible conflict. History shows that the best way to avoid war is to be prepared for it. Macron, the president of France, is following a dangerous path, much like the 1930s, leading to one inevitable outcome: a divided Poland and Russian soldiers in the capitals of countries that oppose them. Poland is already one of NATO's top defense spenders, with 20,000 soldiers, but it's expanding its army to 500,000 and ensuring every adult male is trained for military service. Poland knows the best way to avoid war is through preparation. Poland is also seeking nuclear capabilities, as announced by the Prime Minister. The urgency is driven by Russia's rhetoric. They don't want peace. They want to rebuild the Soviet Empire and continue their aggression. Kremlin TV makes it clear that Russia won't stop. They'll keep pushing, regardless of ceasefire talks. Ukraine's resistance has forced America to continue supplying them with weapons and intelligence. Our mission is set by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, and we will follow it. The peace plan has already failed. Russia has only its army and navy, but we have the strategic missile forces. This is just the start of a long negotiation process. For Russia, things are also going badly on the battlefield. Its own forces are turning against each other. Russian soldiers have been caught attacking their own troops. And this isn't the first time. Recently, a shocking video showed Russian forces executing 5 Ukrainian prisoners of war. A Ukrainian drone captured the footage. The prisoners had surrendered, lying on the ground with their hands up. Despite this, Russian troops shot them. Ukraine has vowed to report this war crime to the UN and the Red Cross. Officials say Russian war criminals must face justice, but this is not the first time such atrocities have happened. Russian forces have repeatedly attacked both Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. Now, let's talk about North Korea's involvement in the war. Putin reportedly paid $5 billion to bring in 11,000 to 12,000 North Korean soldiers. He likely expected them to strengthen his army. Instead, they have become more of a burden. They are poorly trained, face language barriers, and even fire at their own side by mistake. This has forced Ukraine's allies, especially the US and NATO, to rethink their approach. Until now, they had been careful not to provoke Russia. For example, the US only allowed Ukraine to use long-range missiles defensively, not to attack targets deep inside Russia. But when Putin brought in foreign soldiers, everything changed. In November, the US allowed Ukraine to use ATACMS missiles against Russian targets. These missiles can destroy bunkers, air bases, and military storage sites. This move gave Ukraine a new advantage. Seeing this, the UK and France also lifted restrictions on their Storm Shadow and Scalp EG missiles. Ukraine wasted no time. It used Storm Shadow missiles to strike Russian command posts and ammunition depots. One major attack hit Russia's 35th and 27th Separate Motor Rifle Brigades in the Kursk region. Reports say Ukraine fired up to 12 missiles in the strike, killing 500 North Korean soldiers and a top North Korean general. This was a huge loss for Russia. Despite this, Russia pushed forward, sending more troops into battle. But without their destroyed command centers, their attacks became chaotic. Poor communication and outdated tactics made it easy for Ukraine to counter them. In recent weeks, Russia and North Korea have suffered massive losses. Reports say hundreds of North Korean soldiers are dying every day. Russia itself is losing up to 1,200 troops daily. To make things worse, Russia is not training these soldiers properly. They don't understand modern warfare. A captured Russian soldier revealed that North Koreans receive better food and treatment than Russian troops. But they are robotic, reckless, and shoot at anything that moves, including their own side. With little training and no real strategy, these North Korean troops are hurting Russia more than helping. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps adapting, staying ahead, and making Putin's war even harder. Moreover, Putin's influence in the Balkans and Serbia is indirectly impacted by the political and social turmoil unfolding within the country. Serbia's recent crises have sparked mass protests demanding accountability and a government resignation. Despite Serbia's historical ties with Russia, particularly under Vučić's leadership, Serbia's actions growing discontent. Vučić's attempts to downplay the public's anger and refuse transparency only intensify the pushback. On the other hand, Europe becomes more focused on countering Russian aggression. Vučić's earlier stance on supporting Russia appears less certain now, especially after publicly apologizing for Serbia's UN vote and altering its stance. If the situation in Serbia continues to deteriorate, it might prompt a shift in Serbia's foreign policy, undermining Putin's influence in the region. On a broader scale, as NATO strengthens its defense in response to Russia's actions, Serbia's instability could become a destabilizing factor for Putin's empire. With Serbia moving away from direct support of Russia, Putin's efforts to extend his influence in the region may face setbacks. Furthermore, the ongoing internal pressure from protests in Serbia might lead to a realignment of political allegiances, weakening Russia's position in the Balkans and complicating its relationships within Europe. Thanks for watching. Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.